Welcome to your MCI training. Today we'll be talking about treatment and transport. This is the icebreaker slide. This slide shows a few years back up in Seattle where the duck taxi crashed in the overpass there. They had 5 dead, 51 patients were transported, and out of those 51, 12 were reds. So the idea being, think of what that would do to our resources, both our own at Central Pierce and our neighboring agencies as well. So it's very important that we train on this and that we have common language and terminology between the agencies as well, and that's part of what we're doing here. It's just real important that MCIs can be very dynamic. It's real easy to go on a bunch of different rabbit trails, but regardless of which rabbit trail we're going to take, we got to have tools for your toolbox in order for you to be successful on these events. So that's the idea of what we're doing when we give you this MCI training is we're giving you tools for your toolbox so you can build the basic foundations in order to bring some organization to the chaos that you will encounter during an event like this. All right, what is Central Pierce Fire and Rescue doing to get you prepared for an MCI? Well, for the past year, we've been doing monthly DMCC drills with Good Sam Hospital. We've been taking one medic unit and one engine out of service, and we go down to Good Sam Hospital ER Bay, and we activate DMCC, and we run a drill with them, and then on our end of the spectrum, we do transport position out there, and we do all the communication that take place between DMCC and transport. And then afterwards we have a hot wash, and we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. And during this past year we have learned a lot, and we've come a long ways, and we have other agencies that have been part of this drill now as well. We've developed checklist for triage, transport, treatment, medical, and the first on engine. Anything in red on the screen you'll see is what we're going to be talking about today. We've developed a transport board. We've developed a DMCC bed count board, and we've been offering MCI training. So in the third quarter of 2021, we did triage, and remember we introduced the new triage method, salt triage. And then fourth quarter of 2021, we covered treatment and transport, and that's what we're going to be talking about today as well. And then second quarter of 2022, we'll be covering medical and IC. And then third quarter of 2022, we'll be putting all these roles together and doing an actual MCI drill. But just keep in mind that this is kind of that crawl, walk, run mentality. We'll still be in the crawl phase. All the MCI instructors will be out there in the training ground with you. We're not out there to throw you any curveballs, or we're there to help you and assist you and hopefully learn a lot and have fun while we're doing that. The air light rig will be converted to the MCI response vehicle. For those of you that have been around long enough, you know that the air light rig used to be the MCI rig, and now it is again. We're introducing a new triage method to Central Pierce and the county, and that's what we did in the third quarter of last year, and that's the salt triage method. And then we're working and training with neighboring agencies. So we've worked quite a bit already with Tacoma Fire, Ordine, and Graham. And then we're also working with Gig Harbor and West Pierce as well. So all the agencies around us are getting invested in this as well. This next slide shows what the Central Pierce MCI ICS chart looks like. We like to build from the ground up, which is why we started with triage. And then today we're doing transport and treatment. And then the second quarter of this year we'll be doing medical and incident command, and then the third quarter of this year is when we put all of these pieces together. For the visual people like myself, the basic MCI setup, you see that triage is out in the field doing their thing, and then you establish that funnel point, and when you establish the funnel point, that's going to determine where treatment and transport are located. So treatment is located just inside of the funnel point, and transport is located just outside of it. It's important that way we can keep patients near the funnel point so they can get transported out easily and quickly. And also transport and treatment team leaders, most of their communication will be face-to-face, so it's important that they're close to each other. And then you can see on the outskirts there, medical and IC as well, and they'll be doing a lot of face-to-face communications as well. What does DMCC stand for? Well, it stands for Disaster Medical Control Center. And then who is the DMCC? That's Good Sam Hospital. Is there a backup DMCC? Well, there was. There no longer is, and the backup was Madigan Army Medical Center, and no longer is it there. We do not have a backup. The county is working on one of the other hospitals being a backup DMCC, but currently the only DMCC we have is Good Sam Hospital. And then what are the responsibilities of DMCC? Their main responsibility is to shop beds for you and to collect triage colored patient data so they can get the patients to the right hospitals if need be. Where does the hospital run DMCC from? A lot of you guys know that we do transport to the hospitals. In the paramedic lounge, there's a lot of phones there and charts and maps. Originally, when that was built, that was the plan, was for the hospital to run their DMCC communications out of that room. But currently, the idea is they'll be running DMCC from the charge nurse station. It's their prerogative to do so. They have the ability to transfer everything into the paramedic lounge, but they're going to be starting everything at the charge nurse station. And is there a DMCC phone number? The answer is yes. It should be on all of our department cell phones, but we'll be utilizing Good Sam Base's phone number for communications. We won't be using the DMCC phone number unless they dictate otherwise. Your first alarm MCI run card will get you 4 engines, 1 ladder, 5 medic units, 2 BCs, 2 MSOs, and those are your day shift MSOs, which is currently your EMS chief and your EMS captain. And then you'll get the MCI air light rig, which is currently located at station 69. And that rig's set up to treat about 100 patients. The 2nd through 6th alarm will get you 3 additional engines or ladders and then 3 additional medic units. Officers, for anything over a 6 alarm, be very specific for what you need. If you need 10 more transport units, ask for those 10 more transport units. We don't do strike teams. Those take too long to mobilize. So when you ask for 10 more transport units, FireCom will get you the closest, most appropriate transport units so we can get them there quickly. Expect at that point in this call, if you're asking for that many more transport units, you're going to start seeing agencies like King County Medic 1, TriMed, Rural Metro. You're going to see agencies that we haven't normally worked with showing up to help us out. This is something we've been working with DMCC over the last year. This is something that's it's called a heads up call. So the first medic unit dispatched on the run card will contact Good Sam Hospital. They will give the heads up call. This is not a DMCC activation. Just want to repeat that. This is not a DMCC activation. This is trying to get the right players in place. So if a DMCC were to be activated, because there's a high likelihood on this dispatch that it could happen, you get this heads up call so you have the right players in play. We all know that sometimes when you call base, you might get somebody who's new, or you might get somebody who says hold for a nurse. This ensures that when you're given a heads up call, they can go get the people that are able to handle and have proper training in DMCC activation. And what the heads up call will look like is just this. This is Jason on Medic 71, just giving you a heads up that we've been dispatched to a car into a crowd at the fairgrounds with multiple patients being reported. I will give you more information when we get on scene. And then you hang up. And then what's expected and how we train during our DMCC drills is that nurse will then go get some extra help, because it takes about 10 minutes when we activate DMCC in real time. It takes about 10 minutes for them to contact all the hospitals and get bed counts and get the system going. So it's important that we have the right people in play. There will be a video attached to this PowerPoint that will go over transport and treatment leader checklist, and then what that communication looks like between transport units coming in and how they communicate with the transport leader, and also how it'll cover how the transport team leader will talk with DMCC as well. If you're assigned to transport, you're going to don your identification vest. Well, we all know that we don't have transport identification vest on our rigs. That's actually going to be located on MCI 69. So that's going to be for your larger scale events. All right, next box down there, you're going to identify the location of the funnel point. So if we scroll back to the other slide here in basic MCI setup, you'll see once you determine where that funnel point is you know where treatment and transport go. We're also going to identify the transport unit access. We're going to obtain an estimated amount of patients, and we don't need exact numbers, and we don't need the triage color numbers either. We just need to know about how many patients we're dealing with. And you can access these numbers through Triage Leader. We're going to request any needs such as supplies, personnel, transport units, etc. Remember, you are working for command until medical is set up. The next section is you're going to activate DMCC by calling Good Sam Base phone number, and the phone number is provided. Or if the phones are down, you will utilize the 800 radio for communication, and then there's the hospital channel for your 800 contact. And it'll look something like this when you talk to DMCC. There's your script to read from. This is Jason with Central Pierce, Engine 71. I have an MCI at the fairgrounds with approximately 20 patients. I'm requesting open protocols in DMCC activation. I will have my transport liaison call you back for destination orders shortly. And then you'll hang up. You do not stay on the phone at this point. Good Sam, DMCC is aware of this. This is how we train with them. They, at this point, are now activating their system. It takes them about 10 minutes to get everything spun up and right where they need it to be. And then this also allows us to check off some more boxes and get set up ourselves. So you see there's a few more boxes that we got to check off. So we're going to set up a field MCI desk, and we'll talk about that in just a moment as well. I got some pictures on what that looks like. But we'll do, at that, you'll have your set bed count board, your cell phone for DMCC communication, an 800 radio, a transport board at the funnel point, and grease pens and Sharpies. All right, now you're going to obtain your patient count for each triage color category, red, yellow, and green. And you can obtain these either through triage, or if treatment is set up, you could do that as well. Expect that these numbers can change, and expect that they probably will change. And that's okay. Just proper documentation and communication with DMCC will help alleviate any kind of confusions. And then the officer needs to assign roles and play off to the strengths of his crew. He's going to have one person reestablish communication with DMCC and utilize the set bed count board for DMCC orders. Update DMCC with patients who have burns, amputations, and pediatrics. Request transport units, and you're the point of contact for incoming transport units. This is the phone call that stays open with DMCC and does not hang up until they're done. Another tip would be to also provide them with your cell phone number that you're using in case communications get lost. They can have a number to try to call you back on. Notify DMCC if patients are en route to hospital prior to DMCC orders. We're very blessed in this agency to be resource heavy. It is very realistic that by the time DMCC is set up that we have 2 patients already en route to the hospital. So it's important to relay that information to DMCC so they can, those preferably we're transporting 2 red patients. So we can let DMCC know that we have 2 red patients already being transported to the trauma center, and then they can be a part of that patient count. So when DMCC is doing their hospital calls, that it's all built into the system and nobody's getting surprised. And when we do our monthly drills with Good Sam DMCC, this is how we train as well. We always train with patients are already en route to facilities. So there's no surprises. One person will be at the funnel point with the transport board, grease pen, and stat bands. One person will be listening to the 800 radio, note-taking, and assisting the transport lead. And then any additional personnel needed to assist roles. Remember, you're working for command until medical is set up. All right, so the transport leader communicates with treatment leader in order to transport most critical patients first. And it's important that only those 2 groups of people are talking to each other. So there's no miscommunications. All right, here's the DMCC set bed count board. Like I said earlier, there will be a video attached to this as well that will go through the process and how this all looks. But here's how it briefly looks. Everybody will have the transport leader will have a DMCC set bed count board. And if you look at the ones, it has a list of all the hospitals in the county, including Harborview for King County. And then DMCC ordered bed count. They're going to give you numbers. For example, they might say Tacoma General can handle 2 reds. So you just write the number 2 where it says Tacoma General in red. They might say something, Good Sam can handle 5 yellows. So you just go down to Good Sam Hospital, go over to yellow, and write for number 5. Expect that those numbers could change. It's very realistic. And then on the other side of the black line, you'll see actual transported patients. And that's where you just keep the hashtag marks of patients that have actually been transported off the scene. And the next slide here is the transport board. And just fill this out to the best of your ability. This is also a legal document and per our protocol that must be on our rigs. This will be located on all of our engines as well for access. And the video that we'll be providing in this will also go over how do we do this. And the next slide is a stat band. This is also per protocol. Everybody must get a stat band attached to them, preferably to their arm or a leg. And on each stat band, there is a small barcode sticker. If you go back to the transport board slide, you'll see that there is a section that says tag number sticker. That is where you're going to hear that small barcode sticker too. Okay, when I'm at with the stat bands, these are real important because this helps with family reunification. It also helps with getting their personal belongings back to them. And this number will stay with the trauma patient through their duration through the hospital system. Depending on the size and severity of the MCI, it is very possible that this patient could go to multiple hospitals. So this stat band ID number will stay with them through that process. Again, this next slide here, here's some examples of what an MCI field desk looks like. One example would be using a stretcher, taking a backboard and wrapping a mega mover in it, and then laying all of your boards and checklists that you need out on it, and including your 800 radio and a cell phone and whatnot. Another option for doing your MCI field desk with all of our new engines have a pull-out step on the back of the engine, and you can wrap a mega mover over a backboard and do the same thing on the new engines. Here's another example where you can do a mega mover and a backboard wrapped and put it on a fire SUV. All right, transporting units. What does Pierce County Protocol say about receiving facility contact for patient care transport? Here's exactly what it says. Once DMCC has been activated, pre-hospital providers will not make individual contact with receiving facilities to give patient care reports regarding MCI patients. What do the receiving facilities want? Well, we've been working closely over the last year with our trauma hospital coordinator, and it would be greatly appreciated, not required to do so. It's not a you shall do this, but if you're able to do this, they would like the transporting units to give a heads up call to the receiving facility for those triage patients that they're transporting. So the information that they would like is a triage color, age, sex, and ETA. I'll just repeat, this is not a you shall do this, but this is if you're able to do so, they would greatly appreciate this. This helps ensure that the hospitals can get the right players in place so they're ready to go on your arrival. And this last slide here is the treatment leader checklist. Just make sure if you're assigned a treatment that you're bringing something to the party. You're going to bring medical equipment with you, mega movers, backboards, and stat bands. You're going to don your treatment identification vest. Once again, that's going to be on larger scale incidents, and that'll be located on MCI 69. Remember, you are working for command until medical is set up. You're going to check in with command unless there is a medical group supervisor. You're going to identify location of funnel point, identify location of treatment area, and then you're going to request any needs like supplies, personnel, a paramedic, etc. You're going to set up a treatment area if not done already, and the treatment area should be set up as close to the funnel point as possible. You're going to identify leaders for each treatment section. Red, if resources allow, use a paramedic as a red leader, and then a treatment leader, and then identify leaders for yellow and green as well. And then you're going to set up 3 treatment sections. Red, this section should be closest to the funnel point, and then yellow and green progressing away from the funnel point. You're going to utilize the triage colored tarps and flags. Those are located on MCI 69. And then you're going to ensure all patients are getting stat bands while in treatment. You'll coordinate with the transport group supervisor. You're going to determine when and what patients are ready for transport, with focus being on transporting red patients first. Update transport with information such as pediatrics, burns, and amputations. And that's the final slide for transport and treatment. There will be a video attached to this that will go over in more detail on what those communications look like. Thank you.